so much for tuning in to another terrific Tips for Business podcast. I'm Terry, your host, and today we have a very special guest. We have Dr. Bob Levine with us. And let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Bob if you don't know him. He has researched the root cause of neurological and psychiatric illnesses for over 30 years and has secured over $10 million in funding. He's worked with large corporations and headed community programs for relief of chronic pain and stress. Dr. Bob has received several awards in the health and wellness industry and has published over 80 articles. And he's even been featured in the press and the radio. He's a loving husband and father of 3 teenage boys. Whew, boy, does he know stress. And he's traveled the world presenting his research results. Dr. Bob's greatest passion is transforming people's lives through his unique programs. And I'm honored and grateful to have him with us today because I've only very recently met Dr. Bob through a coaching friend of ours. And I think he has this beautiful talent for helping small business owners really understand the source of their stress and how to wrangle it. So join me in welcoming Dr. Bob to the show. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here, Terry. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Why stress? What made you decide to go from being this neurological researcher to really kind of digging into the effects of stress?
Well, I started out, got my PhD at George Washington University in pharmacology, specializing in brain research, and did all kinds of high-level cellular basis of neurological and psychiatric illnesses, mostly basic research and also some clinical research too. But then what really got me into holistic health was about 25 years ago, I developed a really bad back and hip problem, and it was from all of my college football days, just smashing my body around. And so my hips were really having a problem. And my MD buddies were telling me that after all the imaging and the different conventional medical approaches that I tried, nothing could get me out of pain. They were telling me I needed to wait as long as possible to get a hip replacements on both sides because there was severe osteoarthritis in both hips. So I just wasn't interested in that future. So I started exploring alternative health, and I tried many different therapies, spent a lot of money, a lot of time, over more than 6 months of active treatment with holistic health practitioners of all different types, trying to figure out, and that was back in 1994 and 1995, and there wasn't anybody, or weren't too many people like me who could guide other people on where to go and how to get, what kind of treatments might help. But finally, after a long road, I was able to unlock, after more than a dozen therapies, I was able to unlock the pain. And that was a revelation to me because I went from, really suffering, limping, putting on weight, pain in my hips and shooting back and shooting down my leg. And it was just so debilitating, and I was so frustrated. And to be able to be free of that after that long road, I just said to myself, well, I've been in research for so long, I need to apply my research skills to testing, which of these approaches first of all, I got training in a lot of different approaches because I wanted to test them clinically. So after my training of different things like acupuncture and deep tissue manipulation, movement education, mind-body connection techniques, a whole variety of approaches I got trained in, I started running clinical trials when I worked at a big health system, Henry Ford Health System in Detroit, to test the effectiveness of these. And so that was a very interesting part of my path, was to how I tested clinically the approaches that I thought would be the best approaches to help people. And that's when I developed large group programs, which was really very unique. I mean, we would take anywhere from 50 to 200 people at a time in the same group for chronic pain relief and stress, sleep disturbance, anxiety, fatigue, and that probably describes a lot of people and what people are going through right now. So
especially small business owners, right? We don't get enough sleep as small business owners. You're a small business owner. A lot of us are running on fumes and fatigue. Oh yes. And the stress of, especially if you're a small business owner that has a team, that you're
Yeah.
trying to support. It's not just about you bringing in enough income for your house or for your business, but it's about bringing in enough income to support the team and their homes as well. So yeah, I think you're talking to exactly the right audience here about that.
I left the big health system with my cushy job in 2012 to go out and be a small business owner, entrepreneur with my wife, Charlene, and we formed corporate and community wellness resources. And that was a major shock to go into entrepreneurship and owning a small business and really, doing everything we could to help people with their chronic stress and pain and also flourish ourselves, right? So it was nice though, because now we're we've been doing this since 2012, and she was doing it before I joined her company. She's my boss, which is great. But really, when we talk about stress, it's so important to, people don't realize how debilitating stress is. And a lot of people don't understand the extent to which they are stressed. They try and suppress it. They want to avoid it, but it's there, and it's there at work. It's almost like, somebody who's been smoking cigarettes, like my mom did for 52 years, the body can withstand so much before ultimately something takes it down. In her case, it was lung cancer. But the stress is underlying nearly every ill health condition, and it's a major factor. The CDC has said that over 75% of all healthcare visits are related to stress.
So do you have a tip for helping us to identify the stress that we're carrying in our own body? Because I imagine that we're all carrying stress around and we don't even realize it.
A great place to start is with, believe it or not, the physical structure, the neuromuscular system, because when you can't separate the mind from the body. So when there's stress involved, there's always neuromuscular involvement. And so when people start to, sit quietly for just a little while and take assessment, like, what's going on with me? Am I carrying tension in my shoulders? Am I carrying tension in my neck? How about my jaw, my forehead? Maybe it's tension in my legs. A lot of people grip their toes. So that's a great place to start, because it's really important for people to be able to say to themselves, yes, I am stressed, and I haven't known how much I've been stressed. And anybody and we also talk about communication stress. We should talk about that later. But so a good place to start is with the neuromuscular system, and then figuring out where the physical component of stress is. That tells people, oh yeah, I am stressed. I'm holding my shoulders up. I've got tension in my neck.
I was going to say, what might we be feeling to be able to identify that that's actually stress being represented in our body?
Well, for instance, everybody with the current circumstances going on with this COVID-19 virus, everybody being mostly at home, many people doing Zoom calls almost all day long, video calls, and it's just really a problem, because we're all sitting in the same position. I happen to sit very upright because I understand the importance of upright posture. Most people have not been educated on that. So in all of our programs that we offer our clients, we talk about all the different ways that people can relieve the physical component of stress and the psychological, mental component of stress. So, the issue is, people need to understand that when they're looking at their computer and they're looking down and they're typing, this whole looking down business is really critical. The monitor's got to be up here. The body needs to be upright and looking straight ahead. There should be a keyboard right down low, so that we're not holding our arms out straight, because that's a real problem when people are typing like this. People have no idea how debilitating that can be in the long run, and it's being amplified by the fact that we're spending so much time in front of our computers. So that's the kind of like the physical component of stress. The second component of stress is the mental, psychological component of stress, and the way to get into that is to understand that breathing is so important. The breath, okay? And I always say that any change happens with breath and is led by breath. So, and people need to recognize when they're holding their breath. For instance, when people are in motion, they're moving to their typewriter, or they're looking at something, they're focused on something. They're actually holding their breath. Holding breath is tension building. And that's another kind of stress, right? Then there's the stress of thinking, the thoughts that we have, right? And that's really problematic for a lot of people who have thoughts about the thoughts of, uh-oh, I got a problem here, right? And you've had those, Terry, once in a while, right?
Oh,
So,
sure. And I think every small business owner has. I love that you're talking about the breathing and that we're not as aware of the breath that we're taking, because we've talked about this on the show before. So it's a nice reminder to everybody who's listening to, even as you're listening, take a deep breath right now. Just breathe in and
yeah,
then let it go and
right.
breathe out. And do that a couple of times as you're listening, because that is going to help. Breathing helps the oxygenation of your blood, which helps
Right.
your blood move and do the things it's supposed to do in your body. And the act of breathing deeply from our diaphragm actually does help to relieve stress and relieve that stress hormone that you're talking about. And we've had other people talk about that as well. So I so appreciate you touching on that again. And then also talking about that noise, that white noise that exists between our ears.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but that's the biggest challenge I usually have in business, is dealing with the white noise in my own head. And I
Well,
think a lot of small business owners have that.
that's really interesting. So if I can give one, I'm going to give a lot of different tips on this call. I've already given some. One tip is whatever we resist in life will persist. Whatever we resist will persist. So the best example I can give that people are acutely aware of is when they're with a loved one or somebody they know really well, and the person they're talking to has the same conversation over and over and over again. Usually it occurs with family members, right?
I know not of what you speak.
Yeah. And the thing is that what happens is, if somebody's talking to us and we've heard that conversation 80 times, we're rolling our eyes, we're looking at them, but we're not paying attention, we're not listening. Everybody can tell when they're not being listened to. They're going to keep coming and coming and coming until they feel heard, right? So the trick is to dissipate that, is to let go of the resistance of it, right? And be accepting of the fact that this conversation is coming to you for the 100th, 1000th, whatever number of times it is. And then just let it come in. And they even say it back to the person so they know that they were heard. It's like, I get it. You're telling me again, which is fine, that da-da-da-da-da, ABC, and I'm hearing you. I get it. And then it's it. Quiet. Done. Stop. And then, when it comes up again, which it might just disappear, because when we're remember I said resistance causes what, Terry?
It keeps coming up.
Resistance causes persistence, right? Sorry to answer that question. I'm sorry about that.
You're good.
The resistance causes persistence, and being accepting, which we define in our programs as open to receiving without applying energy to resist, open to receiving with or without agreement. That's really important, because most people think that if they don't agree with something, that they cannot accept it.
I wanted to say resistance causes repetition, and I knew repetition wasn't the right word. That's why
repetition is right, because resistance causes persistence, the repetition of whatever's coming at us,
Yeah.
And so it applies to thinking too. If we're having thoughts and we resist those thoughts, we try and suppress them, we try and get rid of them, we try and distract ourselves without being in the presence of those thoughts and being accepting of those thoughts, they will do what? They will persist. Exactly. And that's devastating to a small business and an entrepreneur who needs to be, on the top of their game, or wants to be, loves to be, has passion to be on the top of their game all the time, right? That's what we want, because that allows us to deliver for our clients, to deliver and help people in whatever we offer them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the key is, when you're having thoughts that you'd rather not have, be okay that you're having those thoughts. Be accepting of those thoughts. Listen to those thoughts. Let the voice go, because the voice will transform itself from the voice of uh-oh to the voice of yes, we can, and yes, we will, right? So I want to talk about one more thing really quick, and that's the future vision, right? So when we're having thoughts of uh-oh, I'm just using uh-oh to describe whatever we're thinking that we don't want, right? So we're having these thoughts of uh-oh, that our future vision that's actually driving the thinking of uh-oh in the present moment is what we call a corrupt future vision. It's a future vision of something we don't want. Like, we don't want business difficulties. We don't want client problems. We don't want to be delayed on delivering a product according to a timeline. So that future vision is, we have client troubles. We don't deliver on a timeline, right? We're worried. We're confused. We're scared. We're stressed, right? That's the corrupt future vision. So people need to understand that whatever's going on with them in each present moment, and we teach a future visioning module in all of our programs, and we teach a future visioning course, a whole course on future visioning, because when you have the future vision locked in for what you really want, and that's driving you in each present moment, there are no thoughts. That the white noise, as you say, that little voice it's transformed to, it's your cheerleader.
Yes.
And that's why I always, I'm not that pleased about when people say, oh, the voice in your head, it's not your friend. That is not accurate in my opinion. In my opinion, the voice in your head is simply a function of whatever your future vision you have. If it's a corrupt future vision, like, I can't do this, I'm not the one, I don't have what it takes, I don't know how to do this, or anything like that, that's the corrupt future vision leading to those thoughts.
Yes.
When the future vision is, aha, yes, I am able to do this, and I will do this. I'm doing this, and this is great. And these are the people it's going to help. And this is how it's going to provide revenue for the business and net profit, so I can reinvest in the business, and I can do some of my net profit for philanthropy and fund those missions in the world that I think are so great. That's what we call the true future vision. And then the voice in our head is our cheerleader. So that's a great way to recognize when we're stressed, because the thoughts that we're having are not the thoughts that we'd rather have. And then if we resist them, they will persist. So it's a question of that. So we use our breath, right? We recognize, I call it the RIB, R-I-B. This is like, just if anybody was going to write something down, they would want to write down RIB, R-I-B, right?
Yes.
R is for recognize the neuromuscular tension, recognize the thought that we're having that we'd rather not have, recognize the circumstances around us, recognize how we've been communicating with our loved ones in an ineffective way, and maybe sometimes not a nice way because of the stress, right? Recognize that that's going on. Okay, that's a corrupt future vision right there. All of those, everything that's going on in the present will be from a corrupt future vision. And then I have the intention to shift from, being resistant to being accepting, open to receiving, right? And then B is breath. So it happens like that. Recognize, intention, breath. Done. And then we're free. In that moment, we're free, and we're free to create any future vision we want.
And I think it's really important. I love that RIB acronym that you have. And I think it's really important to note too, that we cannot create from a place of anxiety, fear, stress, or distraction. We can only create and co-create with the energies of the universe, God, whoever you believe in. You can only co-create the life that you wish to have from a place of peace.
Yes, absolutely. People also don't really understand clearly that stress, anxiety, and fear, like being afraid, being doubtful, being unsure, those are all fundamental destroyers of optimal immune system function. So here, when we're in a situation with this COVID-19, what they're calling a pandemic, when people are being stressed, being anxious, and being afraid, any one or more of those, their immune system is going to be in trouble. And there's nothing that you can take. There's no supplementation you can take that's going to counteract that or completely eliminate that. So when people figure, and by the way, this is the key to health too, letting go of the stress, letting go of the anxiety, letting go of the fear. All that's based on a future vision of, I'm going to be in trouble. Okay. So when the future vision shifts, like when I go out to the store, okay, I have to wear a mask because everybody's in there wearing masks. I make sure I only wear it when I'm near somebody. Whenever I'm not, I take it down. Why? Because I don't want that mask, number one, as you spoke about earlier, restricting oxygenation, right?
Right.
And I don't want that mask to be, everybody has microbes, bacteria, viruses, and when you're exhaling, sometimes those things are coming out, right? So they're collecting in the mask. I mean, really, then you're breathing them back in, you're getting a higher concentration. of these microbes. So the mask, pluses and minuses on the mask. So I make sure I have it up when I'm near somebody, and when I'm not, it's down. And then somebody else is coming toward me, like in the supermarket, I put it back up. So that's just a little tip on the mask business. I wanted to talk a little bit about COVID-19 because it's so prevalent in everybody's minds, you know. So the trick is, when our future vision is one of we're healthy or we're getting healthy fast for people who are not so healthy. And by the way, if you're not so healthy, if you're taking medications for things like high blood pressure or diabetes or other medications, okay, so you have ill health conditions. You want to care for yourself. You definitely want to take care of yourself. Your future vision, though, is one of you are healthy. You know, you are immune from, you know, you don't have stress anymore because you figured out how to use your breath. You use RIV, you let it go, no more stress, no more anxiety, no more fear. If it crops up, you know, 120 times a day and it takes you 2 seconds to exercise RIV, 240 seconds, 4 minutes a day, the rest of the time you're free. Perfect.
It's beautiful. And I heard something once, and you might be able to talk on this too, that if we say I have whatever illness it is that we've been diagnosed with,
yeah,
we've now owned that illness.
Yeah.
Instead of saying I was diagnosed with.
Well, okay, that's really good. You're gonna get me on another little gripe I have. So you're absolutely right. Like, I have this condition that's corrupting the future vision. Like, I have Parkinson's disease, or I have a sleep disturbance, and so of course you have it. You carry it with you until you figure out how to shift. But until you figure out how to shift yourself, you have it, right? So that's really critical. Thanks for bringing that up, Terry. Now, the diagnosis. A diagnosis is a snapshot in time. Mm-hmm. It's just like right there. So I've taken people who have chronic back pain, and in 15 minutes, and then they've diagnosed with bulging discs and compressed nerves and all this other stuff. And in 15 minutes, I can have them pain-free. Now, it doesn't happen all the time that way, but it's pretty reliable that I can help people get out of pain pretty fast, especially if it's acute pain, right? And so what happens? They get a diagnosis of something. In fact, this happened with a Parkinson patient of 15 years, medicated, shaken and baking, and I did something in a matter of a 30-minute interaction. It wasn't even a treatment session, to have this person completely stop their movements, totally stop their movements, and it stayed that way for a day and a half, right? So what happens? The diagnosis is, oh, you've got 90% plus of your dopamine neurons in this particular part of the brain that are dead. So you have Parkinson's disease, right? And the diagnosis is, and the symptoms are shaking all over the place. But when I worked with this person, you know, just because it was at a Parkinson's disease conference, I was presenting some of my research results. It was and this was a clinical advocate, a patient who had Parkinson's disease. And I worked with that person, and they, at the very beginning of the conference, and we did something very unique and special that I'm not going to explain now. It's a really phenomenal story, but it would take too long. And that person was free of all movement, but they were still medicated for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And they were free the whole conference of the movement disorder. So the way I want people to think about it, and people feel like they got to have a diagnosis, like they search for a diagnosis. Tell me what I've got. Be happy when conventional medicine can't diagnose something. That's beautiful. Because that's what I love. I want the 50 million people who can't get a diagnosis to come work with me, because I love that. They've been checked out, they've been imaged, they've been squeezed, they've been whatever has been done to them, and I want them to come work with me because I love that.
Because it's related to your story. It's what led you to do what you do, because you went through that same process for your own wellness. And I think it's really cool that you're able to do that for people with Parkinson's. You really need to connect with the Michael J. Fox Foundation if you haven't already.
Well, the thing about, let me just say, okay, I don't want everybody to think out there that I'm a Parkinson's disease miracle worker, because if you gave me 100 Parkinson patients, like in a room right now, and said, okay, you're going to have 15 minutes with each one, you know, the number of people that I could have that impact on in 15 minutes would be really small.
Sure.
I want you to know that. I want everybody to know that. So now, if I take 100 Parkinson patients and I put them in a room like a group program, like we've done in the past with multi-synths, how we do our online programs. We have our online programs, and we have one called Drug-Free Pain Relief Made Easy. And it's a multi-session program that occurs over 5 sessions over an 8 to 10 week period, right? And then we tell people over Zoom, like if I were teaching you, Terry, I'd say, this is what you need to do. I would have a PowerPoint, I would show videos, and then I would send you all the supporting materials, and you, between each session, would do exactly what you need to do. And it would take you maybe 15 to 30 minutes a day to do this stuff. And you'd start immediately to feel benefit, right? So I could take those Parkinson's patients and I could help a lot of them. And we've done that with some. It has the biggest feature from all of my work has been chronic pain, stress, anxiety, fear, fatigue, sleep disturbance. Those are the symptoms. And what I do is I deal with symptoms. I don't really care what the diagnosis is because we're just trying to classify people. There's so many diagnoses that are catch-alls like chronic fatigue syndrome. Okay, that nobody can explain that, right? There's so many others like that. MS, so many people misdiagnosed with multiple sclerosis, right? Because we've helped a lot of multiple sclerosis patients over the years. And so, I don't deal with, somebody says, I don't really have a diagnosis. I say, fantastic. If they have a lot of diagnoses, that's fine. What are your symptoms? That's what I want to know. Because we're going to work on the symptoms. We're going to make sure that those symptoms are taken care of. And that's what I did with this Parkinson patient at this meeting. I was looking at his symptoms, wondering what was going on, and I figured out something.
Well, and that makes sense because the symptoms are what's affecting our quality of life. The symptoms are what's distracting our small business owners from the success that they can have.
Right.
Are the symptoms of that stress. One of the things you touched on earlier in the conversation was your seven conversation keys for stress.
Seven steps to eliminate miscommunication stress, right?
That's it. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. So, most people who work in the stress arena or the anxiety arena, by the way, so this, you have a diagnosis of insomnia. Okay, well, all right, what does that mean? You can't sleep well. I'm going to get back to the communication in just a minute, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you get a diagnosis of general anxiety disorder. So what good does that do anybody? Okay, what's the deal? What's the symptom? I can't sleep. What's the symptom? I'm afraid all the time. I'm scared. I have paranoia about this or thoughts about that. Okay, those are the symptoms, right? And that's what we need to deal with. Not do you have general anxiety disorder? Do you have depression? Do you have bipolar? Do you have schizophrenia? The diagnosis, we try and put people into a category, then we've trained people to adopt their diagnosis, like you said, So anyway, so I have symptoms, which I'm going to be free of really soon. That's a future vision that everybody with symptoms should have, right?
I love it. And I love that you're a man after my own heart, because I've been saying for years that we over-label so that we think that labeling helps us understand, but all it does is kind of keep us in this box of whatever this label is. And it doesn't give us the freedom to grow or change as people. And that's what we as a human race does. We grow and we change. We learn, we adapt. That's what we've done for centuries. It's what we're going to continue to do, because that's what we were put here to do, is to grow and change and adapt. So if in this snapshot that you get during this diagnosis puts you in this box, now you're classified in this box always and forever, and people look at you and only see this box. Well, what if 5 years down the road, you've changed, you've grown, you've adapted, you no longer fit in this box anymore, but you're being told because of that snapshot diagnosis 5 years ago, you're still in this box. Well, that's kind of holding you back from your true potential.
Beautiful. Very well said. Excellent. And I'm going to come back to communication, but the other thing, something flashed in my mind that I wanted to look. Oh yeah. Do you know what a drug holiday is? Most people don't have a clue what a drug holiday is.
No, I don't.
So you're along with the 99% of the people, which is fine, because let's educate people. A drug holiday is when you're taking a drug for a while, right? And then, most of the drugs people take, they're taking them for a long time, right? Blood pressure medication, diabetic medication, sleep disturbance medication, anxiety medication, depression medication. People are on these drugs for a long time. And yet, is it possible that the people change a little bit, like you say? things change for
Absolutely.
them, right? So a drug holiday is when you work with your physician and you slowly wean yourself off. And you probably have to bring this up to your physician, because most physicians are writing prescriptions, and they're prescriptions for life a lot of times, right? So, um, so you want to ask your physician, well, what about a drug holiday? What would it mean if I took a break from this? We weaned me off, and then I saw where I was. I mean, a great thing to do that with is for cholesterol medication, for high blood pressure medication. If somebody's really well controlled with their blood pressure medication, um, you know, um, they possibly don't need it anymore. And look, all these chemicals, they're valuable at times, and they're super potent, and they have massive side effects a lot of the time. So people think about, if you're on medications, think about working with your physicians to see if they'll work with you to try a drug holiday, And then, because some people who are taking diabetic medication, they've adjusted their diet, they're starting to move around a little bit more, they're getting more exercise, right? But they're still taking their blood sugar controlling medications. Maybe they don't need those after a while.
Yeah.
And they're still taking them. So drug holiday, I wanted to say something about that.
And that's really important too, because as you shift and change, you have to reestablish what that new baseline is. And doing that drug holiday helps you kind of reestablish what that baseline is.
Absolutely. Very well said. Yeah, you're a smart woman, I tell you. That's great to be on here and talk with you. So communication. Why is communication so vital? Okay, almost all stress that someone experiences is based in language, okay? It's the thoughts we have, it's the sentences that the voice says to us, our voice says to ourselves, right?
Right.
It's language. If it's communication with another person, which is where most of the stress comes from, that's based in language, right? So in our programs, every program we do, I don't care what kind of program it is, whether we have a program for sleep disturbance, whether we have a program for anxiety, whether we have a stress relief program, chronic pain relief program. By the way, here's another tip, and I'm going to come back to communication. If you're out there, listeners, and you've got any kind of pain, chronic pain, I just want you to know that while you're working with whoever you work with to get out of pain, it's really important to also relieve stress, interrupt the automatic stress reactions that are occurring. Because anytime there's stress, in the long run, there's going to be pain. So if you try and work on getting out of pain, like you've got back pain and you're going to see, let's say, a physical therapist or chiropractor, massage therapist, acupuncturist, if they're not working with you on de-stressing yourself, then find somebody who will at the same time work with you on de-stressing, okay? So all of our programs, if it's a chronic pain program, it's got a stress relief component because it's absolutely vital. And the same thing occurs in communication, okay? So should I wind back to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in all of our programs, like I said, we have a communication module, and we have a whole program that we offer just on communication. This is super important for small business owners and entrepreneurs, because everything is communication, and we're talking to clients where we want to offer opportunities to people to buy things from us, right?
Or even provide good customer service. Good communication is key to providing quality service to your clients at the core.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So can you imagine if you don't have a handle on your automatic, we call them automatic stress reactions or automatic patterns that people have in communication, because there's automatic patterns. And when you have an automatic pattern of miscommunication or dysfunctional communication, that's going to land everywhere on all these clients and all your coworkers and all of the joint venture partners you want to work with, and all the, it's going to affect everywhere. So there's some simple rules of communication, and I'm going to give a couple. We got a whole bunch of them, but should I give a couple?
Just a couple, yeah. And then we'll give people a reason to contact you, because they're going to want to know the rest.
Yeah, true. Well, the thing is, what I want to say right now is, you see it is back here, and there's my little banner here. And if you're listening, I'm just going to tell you there's a way to contact me, because I have some tips on a lot of this stuff, and I'm adding more tips all the time. If you open a URL and go to meetdrbob.com, that's meet, MEET, DR like doctor, and then Bob, BOB.com. That'll take you to my digital business card, where you can retrieve some free gifts. And there's a really great tip on chronic back pain. People have back pain, but that tip, what's in there, the content that's in there can be applied to all kinds of neuromuscular pain. So it's a lengthy description, but when you study that, read that, it can really help. I mean, I've helped certain people just eliminate their back pain by following that simple tip, right? And there's other pains that can be resolved as well. Because if you have chronic pain, it's a whole body chronic pain pattern, right? So almost nobody comes to any of our pain relieving programs with just one pain. If they have back pain, they also have hip, or they might have knee also, or they might have shoulder, or they might have headache, or they might have neck. So I mean, the average person who comes to one of our programs has at least 3 chronic pain areas.
And it's typically spurred from one. One starts and it's a cascade effect into other pain areas. So I agree. Dr. Bob, I'm so excited. You've been so valuable, and to know that you have some free tools that our listeners can tap into following the conversation, I think is beautiful. So thank you so much for all of your gifts and being so gracious today.
Yeah. Now, if you want, I can give a couple of communication tips quickly, or it's up to you.
Let's go ahead and give them just a couple communication tips, because I think that's going to help them improve right now.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap up.
So the real important thing about communication, number one, is eye contact, and it's like meaningful eye contact. That's the first thing. So when somebody's speaking with you, make sure you're looking at them, and not looking at them like, because you're looking at them, but you're thinking about what's next, or you're thinking about what you have to do. You're actually receiving. Your intention is to make sure you hear everything they have to say. And then that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is let everybody finish. 0 interruptions, right? Let them finish. If you don't have the time to talk to them, then you respectfully interrupt them and say, look, unfortunately, I can't finish this conversation right now. I would love to hear more. When can we continue this? Let's set up a time to continue this. So, but if you have the time, let them finish. And if you resist what they're saying, if you don't agree with what they're saying and you resist, they're going to keep talking to you until they feel you've heard them and received what they had to say. Okay, so eye contact, 0 interruptions. And then the best tip, there's so many great ones, but I'll give one more, okay?
Okay.
Because interruption is just devastating when you're with a client, or you're with a team member, or you're with a loved one, and they're trying to talk. I mean, I work on this every day. So they're trying to talk and we're interrupting them. So this is a way to allow laser focus on what they're saying. What you do is you come up with a word that you say to yourself whenever you think they finish talking. So Terry, if I think you finished talking, I say the word to myself, loving. And if I say loving and I get to the end of loving to myself in my mind, and you haven't continued talking, it's my turn, right? You've stopped.
I love that.
Oh, I've had people transform their lives with their loved ones and their businesses just by using this one tip. This tip is crazy good. It's amazing. Now, if you're a chronic interrupter, then you need a longer word, not supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but something like, you need not a 1-syllable word, not a 2-syllable word, maybe not even a 3-syllable word. You got to try it out. I like the word compassion, because when you are listening to someone, and by the way, the reason this tip is so great is because you can't be thinking about other stuff. You have to focus on what they're saying to figure out when they're done. So you get their content, you receive it. They know you're getting it. So you're talking, I think you've stopped. I say compassion to myself. And by the time I get to compassion, if you start talking again, okay, I'm focused again. I listen, right?
Yes.
I'm not interrupting. So that one tip, we got many more of those tips. But these are simple things, and that people can practice like right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that a lot of people will be able to, just take these tips and run. Just remember, to sum up, be open, be accepting, even if with or without agreement. Doesn't matter if you agree, just be open to receiving, right? Let go of all resistance and be accepting. And then future visioning, right? Future vision is really important. If we're having thoughts we don't want to have, our future vision is corrupted by something like, doomsday or whatever. Okay. And then recognize that we're in stress, or recognize that, that we're in stress, have the intention to shift away from stress and let go of the stress and the resistance, and then take a breath. And keep the breath going, especially when in motion, because people tend to stop breathing when they move. That's the tip I didn't give yet, but I'm going to slip in one more. Okay, that's my last tip. Keep your breath going, especially while you're in motion. The only time you want to stop breathing is when you're underwater without air tanks.
Yes, that would be suffocating if you're breathing underwater without air tanks. Don't do that.
That'd be a big problem. Yeah, that's right.
Dr. Bob, this has been absolutely delightful. You have been a pure joy to have on this show. Amazing, amazing tips. I look forward to learning about more of the tips that you have for communication. Actively listening is it's key. It's key for a couple of things. You're letting the person know that you're talking to, that what they have to say matters. So you're not going to have that persistent conversation happening, right? You're also being engaged in that conversation, removing yourself from those distractions. So not only are you letting them know that you're listening and you care about what they say, but because you're not listening for the purpose of responding, you're listening just to listen, you find new things to respond to. You find new questions to ask that come up. It could be the same story you've heard 100 times, but because you're actually listening to it, you might ask a different question, which then shifts the story. And because you've shifted the story, you're not going to have that repetition come back again. So that's beautiful, beautiful tips, Dr. Bob. I'm so glad to have you on the show. And I know our listeners got a lot of value out of this today. Please tune in to check out meetdrbob.com so that you can get more of these awesome tips and figure out how he can help you relieve your stress.
Compassion. Okay, it's my turn.
It is.
I just wanted to give you, I was using that while you were talking. I got calm, and I got compassion, and then just now I just got compassion. So, but it works phenomenally well. And I work on this every day because, when we get excited, we just want to like, hey, listen to this. I got this to say, right? So, but what I wanted to say was when somebody goes to meetdrbob.com, that's meetdrbob.com. There's some buttons on there. It's my digital business card. There's a call button. You can call me. There's a text button. You can text me. The website link is on there. And but most importantly, when you register there, you give me your name and contact information. That's going to give you access to the free gifts. And then also, more importantly, it allows me to communicate to you when I've developed more tips that are offered on the gift page that you'll have access to, and also about programs that are coming up that are related to relieving stress, anxiety, fear fast. That was the title of this. We called it today, Terry called it releasing stress, anxiety, fear fast. So there's programs about that, programs about chronic pain. We have a cool new program called Surgery Made Easy. It's for surgery patients who are needing to go under the knife. And, we want to use our guided meditation relaxation program to help people get ready for surgery, speed up the recovery, and avoid any kind of post-surgical opioids. So that's another thing we're doing. Okay, thanks for letting me put all that stuff in there, Terry.
You are great. Thank you so much for being with us, and I look forward to talking with you more soon.
I look forward to talking to you, Terry. Thank you for having me on your podcast here, and to all of you out there, thanks for listening. I really appreciate you.